In this video, I'm going to show you the Pandora 3D Plus arcade console in terms of the initial setup and what it's like when you first turn it on. Let's do this. Okay guys, I'm going to try to recreate the excitement of when this first arrived. First thing you'll notice, there is an instruction manual with it. It's not bad. Actually, it's not too bad at all. It does kind of make sense. It didn't completely answer all of my questions, and that's something that I hope I can help with as I discover things with these videos. But yeah, there's a fair bit of information there for you. Okay. We have an HDMI cable. That also came free with it, I seem to remember. And this is something I actually bought myself, which is a 4-gangway USB adapter, which basically enables you to plug in additional remotes, which can be really helpful if you're playing a multiplayer game. And you got some spare buttons that just came with it. And of course a power adapter, which is, as you can see, this is a UK one. Now the main deal. Yeah. Still looks pretty shiny and new. So when it first arrived, there was a protective film over this, which was great. The only problem was I did find it difficult to get it off, not around the edges, but around the actual buttons. And you'll see that there's still some little bits of plastic that I didn't quite get off, and I just could not work out how to do it without A, scratching it if you use a Stanley knife or something around the edges, and B, to really get them out from underneath these little buttons here. I did find that a little bit irritating, and it might be that I just missed something and there was something very obvious, an obvious way to do it that I couldn't work out. You can't really prise these off, they seem to be glued down pretty well, so I didn't want to damage it. So that was the only slight gripe, but other than that, you can see it's a lovely shiny looking thing. It has these joysticks. So what I noticed after my first review is that these actually unscrew. And I guess that makes them fairly easy to replace. What I have found sometimes is that they become unscrewed when you don't want them to become unscrewed. Not massive issue, again, it's only very slightly and it doesn't really affect the gameplay, but I do find myself screwing them, especially this one, back on more than I'd like. I'm trying to give you a completely realistic, honest opinion of this, and generally speaking, I'm very happy indeed. It's just little few details that could be potentially improved on this model. And then if I lift it out, you can see here, you've got the back, which is pretty self-explanatory really. You've got various different ports. You've got the power button here, which is pretty self-explanatory. You've got an HDMI port, which generally speaking you're going to link to the TV. You have a VGA one here, so you can link to your computer monitor. And you have an audio out port here, which is for your headphones. And a volume switch here. The great thing about this, which I do like, is that it does have speakers on board the console, which does give it that authentic arcade sound. Okay, slightly tinny, but good. You have a settings button here, which is quite important. I'll show you that in a minute. Then you have these two USB ports here. This one, which I was just talking about, you can link other controllers to. As I say, I've linked several controllers by using this adapter here, which is great. And you also have this USB port which can link to your PC. And I'll come on to that in a future video. And underneath you have the speaker there. These pads are pretty good. I'd say this can slip around a little bit. It has a nice weight to it. However, having used it for several months now, I would say that if you're having a particularly fraught game, then it can slip and slide around a bit. So, getting set up is super simple. All we need to do is to plug this power adapter into the port here, marked DC 12 volts. And I'm going to use the HDMI input to link to my PC. Okay, and as simple as that. If I was just playing, I would probably use the HDMI input to link to my TV. But as I'm going to be demoing this, I'm going to be putting a capture device on the other end of the HDMI in order to screen record and show you what I can see. Okay, so we're all set up. The Pandora 3D Plus Retro Arcade console is right here. It's powered up. It has an HDMI cable plugged into the port at the back. And at the other end of the HDMI cable, I'm going to attach this guy, which is the device that I use to capture the video so that I can record games and I can record anything that I see on the screen. So I can show you guys how this works. If you're interested in doing your own screen recording, then there is a video link above that I've made on just that topic, so check it out. So without further ado, let me attach the video capture device, and I'm going to put that into my laptop right now. Okay, so now we're all set up. Let's have a look and see what it looks like when you first turn this machine on. You ready? Let's go for it. Whoa. Now, personally, I think that's a great opening, and when I first got this home and turned it on, that gave me a lot of confidence that this thing was going to work. I think that's a terrific opening, and it's actually one of the indications that you have bought yourself a legitimate Pandora, because the knockoff ones don't tend to have that opening that you just saw. So now we've seen the musical intro, it's done its thing, we're on the main menu, let's take a look.
So this is pretty much what you're going to see when you turn on the console. And you are presented with a list, as you can see here, starting with Tekken 6 at the top, 0001. And as you can see at the very top, you have different tabs to choose from. We'll just stay on this one at the moment, which is all. And yeah, it literally does what it says on the tin. So this is all the games that are currently on this console, starting at number 1, which happens to be Tekken 6. At the bottom right of this list, you can see it says 1 of 701. Now that is 701 pages, not 701 games. And there are 10 games on each page. So you do the maths, it's around about 7,000 games in total. So as you scroll down using the stick, and I think either one, the left or the right, will work, it gives you a little preview panel of the game itself on the right, which is pretty cool. There are just tons and tons of games, some of which you'll be very familiar with, some of which I certainly am not so familiar with. A lot of Japanese games I don't think ever made it over, and a lot of games that you certainly will know. And it's quite fun just to scroll through. There are, as I say, over 7,000 games, so you know, it just depends how much time you've got in your hands, really, as to how long you want to scroll for. But if we go back to the top here, you've also got a category view. Okay, now there are 11 different emulators on this console that I've counted, and it starts with this category view with a PPSSPP emulator. Okay, now if I go down and just go to the first game, which as we can see is still Tekken 6, but if I then go to the right, it takes me onto the PlayStation 1 emulator. And if I go right again, we've got the N64 emulator, GoldenEye right at the top. I'm sure one of the most popular games that people will be wanting to play. We have the FC, which is the Famiclone. There's about 910 games on this emulator. We have the SFC, or the Super Famicom, and a lot of familiar games. We've got Final Fight 1, for example, there. It is a emulator that is used for games like that you tend to find on Nintendo consoles. So you find a fair few Mario games on this emulator. Then we have the Game Boy Advance. we go through to the Game Boy Color. And again, at the bottom right of the list, you are given an indication as to how many pages of games there are for each of these. So we're saying 104 pages, so there's around 1,040 games just for the Game Boy Color alone. And I must say, it's obviously when you're talking things like the Game Boy Color, I don't think they necessarily translate to a big screen all that well, but they're still quite fun to play. Then you have what I would call the Mega Drive, but in the States you would call it the Sega Genesis. And you've got about 1,000 games there on this emulator. And then you've got the PCE, which is it's known as either the PC Engine or as the TurboGrafx, depending whereabouts in the world you are. And we've got this. We've only got 4 games on this, just the one page of DC. I must admit, I don't really know what this is. And then we've got FBA, which is another kind of arcade emulator. Final Burn Alpha. And how many have we got on there? We've got, we've got about 1,700 games on this emulator. And we've got good old MAME, where we've got about 810 games. And then we're back to the PPS SPP. So yeah, it's terrific. Now, on this view, we've got a recent. So again, very straightforward, very obvious what this is. These are the games that I've recently played, and it'll show you the most recent 10. So I'm going to go on to Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha just to show you how this one looks. And yeah, I don't know about you, but this is exactly how I remember it looking. Okay, just press the start button.
Street Fighter EX
Plus Alpha. Yeah, let's go for arcade. Now, although I love playing these games, I'm actually not very good at them. So, sue me. I'm a gamer that's not very good at playing games. But this is really just to show you guys, if this is something you're considering buying and it's a bit of fun, what you can do with this thing.
Round 1, fight.
Okay, well, at this point, I'm just going to stop playing before I embarrass myself too much. But yeah, what I'm going to do at this point, this brings me back to the console menu. You can see just before I did that, I actually went into the PlayStation emulator menu. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come out of this game by pressing the B button to exit the game. And I'm back in the recents list. You can also search. So again, this is a pretty useful function, I think. And yeah, again, does what it says on the tin. You can search over here. It's a little bit cumbersome because you're having to use the stick and the buttons, but it does the job. So let's say we want to find Mario and just see what Mario games we have available. And yeah, it brings up a whopping great list of Mario games, yeah? So of all kind of ages up to kind of the late 90s. What have we here? Is this the original? Yeah, so you get the idea. There are tons of games. Again, I press the pause button to get to this menu. I click on B to exit the game, which I can do on either the left or the right controller. Yeah, so that's the search function, and it really is as straightforward as that. I think one of the things that I would have liked to have seen on this, and if it's there but I just haven't worked it out, then that's on me. But it's just a favourites. That would have been nice to see, and possibly just a slightly less cumbersome way of doing a search. But it is pretty darn good. And it does feel nice. The joystick and the buttons are very playable indeed. They've lasted me, since July? It's now January, so, a good 5-6 months coming up. So I can't complain. If I click on the back of the console, yeah, and then we've got the settings menu. So you've got various settings here. The one that I changed straight away is the coin setting. If I just scroll down to this second one down, coin setting, I've set it on free play because the other coin settings mean that it's trying to kind of emulate the sensation of the function of putting a coin into a machine, which I find pretty tedious. You just want to get on with the game. So I've changed that to free play, which I've done by just moving the stick to the right. Then you've got various other game settings, including key settings for the gamepad. I'm just going to press D and go back to the previous menu. And yeah, we've got other various settings down here. The other useful thing to show you is that you can go into the game market here. I click on that one. And then, yeah, I can go to, let's go to the popular chart. Why not? Yep, and there are various ones that we can download. To be honest with you, you will notice that quite a lot of these are probably already on the console. And I think basically it depends which version of the Pandora you have. But other versions might not have these games. There are a few games that I found on here, so that is quite useful that it didn't have. And I guess they just get uploaded as and when. So yeah, there's quite a lot of pages you can scroll through. You can also, again, you can search or go by category, shooting, what have you. Yeah, so that really is about it. That's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and that's what the system looks like once you switch it on. I hope it's been useful for you. And again, it's just the sort of knowledge, the kind of video that I wish somebody had made for me when I was looking to buy this kind of a system, just to give you a little bit of an insight and a taste for what it's actually going to be like.
So thank you so much for watching, and if you've made it this far, then hopefully I've done something right. So please do consider liking and subscribing below to get the good stuff. It truly would mean the world to me. And until next time, so long.